Namaste. Welcome to this session. Uh, we just completed considering the antarayas, yogantarayas, samadhyantarayas, obstacles in the path of yoga, but specifically the sutra comes with reference to antarayas of samadhi, yogantarayas, samadhyantarayas. So we should not be losing the advertence uh, for the textual purport, because otherwise we are all used to this habit of drawing all those things to ourselves and we at the center of it and looking at those things as to how they affect us, impact us. So in formal educative process, we should not be looking that way, although that can be considered, that how anything is obstacle to us and how the obstacles come to us, what obstacles may come to us, etc. But it is important to know that these are to be seen objectively when you are going academically and for educative purpose. So that advertence should not be lost. Where this has come, how this has come, why this has come. And then we can also relate it to ourselves and see how it becomes applicable to us. So the point was that we were discussing until last time, when we are dealing with antarayas, obstacles, that we felt that antarayas are antarayas and that's how they should be looked at, and necessary strategies should be formulated. But what Patanjali is telling us is that these are not just antarayas, but each of the antaraya has a battalion as accompanists, as accompanying factors. That is, if there is vyadhi kind of obstacle, vyadhi also is not just vyadhi. Along with vyadhi, so many other things come to practitioners, such as vyadhi means along with it dukkha daurmanasya angamejayatva shwasa prashvasa. Sthana, same, similarly. So we must understand that every antaraya is having this attachment. So we should not be forgetting the attachment, that every antaraya of whatever degree has these attachments with it. So therefore every obstacle becomes quite formidable. So obstacles are not merely obstacles, impediments are not merely impediments, because they come to human mind and psyche, and therefore there are different repercussions to human mind. So the sutra is dukkha daurmanasya angame jayatva shwasa prashvasa gati vichedaha sabhuvaha. So they are accompanying factors. So they come along with antarayas. So dukkha is something that needs no introduction. So this is how it is taken by a common man. But this is a philosophy. In philosophy, there are detailed studies, there is in-depth studies. Every concept has depth and along enormous width and length, volume. So therefore, one should not be lightly taking this sutra. So, and similarly, daurmanasya. Daurmanasya is again a word which comes in yoga psychology, because in yoga psychology you will come across the word daurmanasya and saumanasya. So these are antonyms: saumanasya, daurmanasya. And saumanasya is taken to be high-mindedness. But then daurmanasya cannot be taken as low-mindedness, because what is then low-mindedness? High-mindedness one can understand, perhaps. And of course, being Chitta Vignan Yoga as philosophical system, there too we should not be complacent. We really don't understand Saumanasya unless we look into commentary on Saumanasya. So Daurmanasya is, in simple words, or at the outset it can be said that, see, when obstacles come, our desires are shattered. Obstacles are not just obstacles. The result of it is that our desires are shattered. And if the desires are not shattered, then they are not obstacles at all. They might come. Whatever magnitude they might be having, yet they are not obstacles. If the obstacles are not desire shattering. We have so many casual demands and wants in life, and many of them are shattered, bulldozed even. We don't bother about every such thing, because we are not serious about those. We just have a dream. We just have imagination and dream that, oh, I should have this and I should have that, and that is shattered. So many things which are shattered. Demands are, expectations are shattered. But then they don't work so strongly unless it is a strong desire. So Daurmanasya means very, very strong desire being shattered. Then what are the reactions? These are enormous reactions. So that is Daurmanasya. To give an introductory meaning to it, Angam ejayatvam. Angam means our body, the corporeal body, the limbs of the body. Ejayatvam means some kind of vibrations in it, or shakiness in it. So our body trembles with fear, our body trembles with anger, our body trembles with despair. So what happens to our physical body when we have attack of despair? What happens to our body when we have volcanic anger? So that is called Angam ejayatvam. When the body has some kind of shakiness, the tremors in the body. So that is Angam ejayatva. Shwasa prashwasa means our breathing is irrhythmic. Again, when we have enormous amount of despair to encounter, or we are encountering despair, we are encountering anger which really we ourselves cannot put up. So sometimes our anger is so volcanic that we ourselves cannot be putting up with it. And we are infuriated to such an extent that we ourselves are not normal. So at that time our breath is taken into consideration. What's our breathing when we are very, 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 very enormously angry? What is our breath and breathing when we are in utter despair? Or sorrow, enormous sorrow, our breath is definitely impacted. And when the breath is impacted, so many nervous system is influenced, circulatory system is influenced, cellular metabolism is impacted, our digestion is impacted. Everything aspect which is related to metabolism is influenced by irrhythmic breathing. So that is being also referred to by Shwasa Prachwasa. So, dukkha daurmanasya angame jayatva shwasa prashwasa vikshepa sahabhuvaha. They are accompanies of all vikshepas which have been now discussed already. The 9 antarayas, 9 samadhyantarayas, obstacles. So the first one is that any of the antaraya, any of the obstacles will have these factors coming along with that factor. So the first is dukkham. So now it implies that we'll have to consider each of these, understand what is dukkham, understand the psychoanalysis of it, try to understand biochemistry of it, try to understand the consequence of it, try to understand the process of it, try to understand effect and process and etc. etc. So also then daurmanasya. What is really daurmanasya? Why is daurmanasya? What happens with daurmanasya? What can be done to counter daurmanasya? So also angam ejayatvam. What is that? Why is that? How is that? What happens by that? So also shwasa prashwasa, which as I said is irrhythmic breathing. So what is it? How is it? Why is it? And what happens by it? This is what we have to consider in this sutra. So the first factor is dukkham. So dukkha is a battalion which is accompanying any of the obstacle. Now dukkha seems to be a concept, an experience and term that we are very, very familiar with it. But in philosophical text, we should understand there are different connotations to every word. Dukkham is not what it means to us merely. It is not just pain sensation. It is because many of the sorrows are not sensations to body, to our tactile organ, but then our mind is hurt, our emotions are hurt, our psyche, consciousness, they are hurt. So it's a hurt to any and every aspect of our embodiment is to be understood as dukkha, and this is philosopher's perspective. Now in philosophy, the dukkha has been thoroughly investigated and they have really analyzed the dukkha, and they are trividha tapa. Dukkha means trividha tapa. So for common man, dukkha means I am hurt, I have become sad, I have got pain, I got painful sensation, it is burning, it is pricking, it is parching. So that's how we take to understand dukkha, because that's how it comes to our experience. So what we experience as dukkha is considered as dukkha, and we don't go into deep analysis of it, because the sensation is so strong and so impactful that we don't feel and don't think of going into the very idea, very notion, very concept and very experience. So in philosophy they are said to be trividha tapas: adibhautika, adhyatmika, adidaivika. So this is what dukkha in philosophy is, and not just pain sensation, and not hurt to the mind, hurt to consciousness, hurt to psyche, hurt to subjective entity. Daurmanasya, as I said, is chittakshobha, on account of, as I said, a very, very strong desire shattered. So that is called chittakshobha. Now chitta, I have often told you how deep is this concept. It has ocean depth. And then kshobha means agitation, disturbance, And Angam Ejayatva is, as I just now told you, the Kamparam in the body. The body having some kind of Kampanam, shakiness, throb, etc. And Shwasa Prashwasa means laya or rhythm lost in the breath. Laya Shunya or irrhythmic breath and breathing, which happens when the mind is disturbed, when the mind is shattered. So let's proceed to have philosophical inquiry as it comes in Yoga Sutra. So Dukkha, Vyasa clarifies, they are Adibhutika, Adhyatmika, Adidaivika. They are also called Trividha Tapa. So while defining Dukkha, Vyasa tells us, Yena abhihataha pranin sad upaghataya prayatnante tad dukkham. So we just think that any uncomfortable sensation, feeling is dukkha. No, that's not just dukkha. Vyasa says, when we are hurt, our aspects, factors and ourselves, we ourselves and our aspects are hurt, whereby we try to overcome it. We try to have a defense against it. We try to have some way to avert it, avoid it. So there is some kind of effort to avoid that happening. We try to duck something because seeing that it is what is coming to us is dukkha. So we try to escape, avoid, duck. So such effort, that effort is dukkham. So something which is worth avoidable. So when we are encountering something that is worth avoidable, worth escaping, worth ducking, that is really dukkha. So it also circumscribes our reaction to that sensation or that condition which is called dukkham, which is called sorrow. So it also includes the reaction, the probable reaction, natural reaction. So that is really the dukkha, which we would like to not have it, we would like to avoid it, we would like to protect ourselves from it, defend ourselves from it, duck, escape, or strategize to mitigate it as minimum as possible. So when such efforts are also counted. Our reaction to sorrow is also counted in Vyasa's definition or his statement. Or we try to destroy the cause of sorrow. So that sorrow includes that. It is not just sensation, where we try to take measures. We want to identify the cause of it, if possible, and try to avert it or destroy that very cause. Because many times before the dukkha comes, if we identify it, we try to destroy the cause of it. Then we really don't have dukkha. But still that is dukkha because we have made an effort. We have made an effort to avoid it, escape it, or destroy it if possible. And this is there in all biological creatures. All life species have it. It's not just human being. All living creatures have this very natural tendency to anticipate dukkha, not only experience dukkha but anticipate dukkha, and then prepare strategies to avoid it, escape it, mitigate it, whatever is possible. So this is a swabhavika prayatna and swabhavika sensation, swabhavika feeling, sensation, etc. So, what is really dukkha? There are definitions which comes in philosophical system. Pratikula vedaniyam dukkham. So this is a basic definition of dukkham, which Vachaswati Mishra in his Tattva Vaisharya brings to our notice, and many of the philosophers have given this definition. What is pratikula vedaniyam? What is undesirable for us? Whatever is undesirable, that itself is sorrow. Whether it has come, or it is coming, or it may come, or it is felt and apprehended it might come, it's a sorrow, it's a dukkha. Because it is pratikula vedaniyam. It is taken as something that is against our mind. Pratikulam, undesirable to us. So, pratikula vedaniyam dukkham adhyatmikam shariram vyadhivashat manasam kamadivashat adibhautikam vyagradi janitam. So, he opens out the Trividha tapas, which are described fundamentally in this way. So, adhyatmikam shariram vyadhivashat. So, adhyatmika dukkha is vyadhivashat, on account of disease, etc. We suffer. We suffer because of the disease. And if you recall, I had said some times back that there must be dis-ease. Many times we have a disease, but we don't suffer. Why? Because we have not felt it, it has not been identified, it has not been diagnosed, and we also don't feel it. However, it is potentially dukkha. We may not have identified it today, maybe it is not diagnosed today, and therefore we don't feel it. So, merely not feeling, it doesn't become not dukkha. So, vyadhi vashat. So, vyadhi might be actually there or potentially there. So, that is the sharira, the kind of dukkha. Then, basically, it is to our body. We suffer primarily in our body. Then, vyadhi vashat manasa. Then, manasam kamadi vashat. The manas dukkha is because that we have kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsaryam. And when they erupt, then that eruption, the cause is from within. Unlike in case of vyadhis, the disease, you might have bacterial infection, viral infection, and therefore you get some kind of disorder in your health. So these are extraneous factors. So they are not counted here. This is from within. Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsaryam. So, manasam cha vyadhi vashat adibhautikam vyagradi janitam. Adibhautika means we are hurt by some body, some animal, some creature, some bird, some insect, etc. So he tries to open out the topic for us to really investigate, understand, explore as to what are these adibhautika, adidaivika, adhyatmic aspect of sorrows, because that's how the sorrow has been discussed in philosophical system, in Darshana Shastra, and in Vedanta Shastra, and also in Dharma Shastra. Then adidaivikam grahapidadi janitam. What is adidaivikam? Adidaivikam because of bad times. And astrology tells about these things, that something is unfavorable, the celestial forces are unfavorable. In our astrological chart, some planets and some graha nakshatras are in unfavorable condition. So grahapidade janitam is adidaivikam. Because all these planets in the astrological chart are celestial bodies: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So these are all celestial bodies. And though there are certain sorrows which are generated by celestial bodies, what we call as fate, what we call as ill luck, bad luck, destiny. So that's how he opens out for us to make an inquiry. Now, really, to understand this, we need to go into Yoga Shastra, Dharma Shastra, Vedanta Shastra, Sankhya Shastra, and understand what these Trivida Dukkhas are. And therefore, these are called Trivida Tapas. So, if one wants to look into it, I can refer one to Vishnu Puranam. Sri Vishnu Puranam has a passage on this. Although you will find passages mentioning these Trivida Tapas in various texts. Adhyatmiko api dvivida shariro manasas tatha is what Sri Vishnu Puranam is saying in 6.5.2. So, Adhyatmika is of two types, Sharira and Manasa both. And Sharira Dukkha is Vyadhi Janya. It is like disease, discomfort, etc. of the on the plane of body. So these are all our agonies which come in the form of disease, discomfort, etc., by which we suffer. And here you have to count the diseases, various diseases from headache, stomachache, etc., to ulcer, to cancer, etc. So there is reference to these diseases. And then it lists some of the diseases with which we are familiar. Brain problems, head problems, back problems, chest problems, abdominal problems, limb problem, joint problems. So we are aware of these. So those are the various diseases which are Sharira. They are called Sharira Adhyatmika because we suffer on account of it. We suffer on account of it, and then that's why Adhyatmika. And that it is on the plane of body, therefore Sharira. And then Manasa. In Manasa, he lists Kama, Krodha, Bhaya, Dvesha, Lobha, Moha, Vishada, Shoka, Asuya, Avamana, Matsaryadi. So, these are on the planes of body. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsaryam. The Apamana, that is, you are offended, you are insulted. Then the mind suffers. The body doesn't suffer, but the mind suffers. So also by shoka, by sorrow, the mind suffers. Jealousy, malice, etc., by which our mind suffers. So therefore they are called manasa. So this you find in 6.5.7 in Vishnu Puranam. And the Adi Bhautika Dukkha is by snake bite, dog bite, cat bite, mouse bite, mosquito bite. And that means some other animal, other animate things, when it is generated by that, it is called Adi Bhautika. So that description comes in 6.5.7 in Vishnu Puranam. Then about Adi Daivika, the Vishnu Purana tells us that these are Shitoshnadi. By heat and cold, we have a kind of discomfort. Shitoshna, Varsha, by heat and by dampness and by cold weather conditions, climatic conditions, we suffer. Those are also called Adidaivika. And then, as I said, Adidaivika is also counted by the planetary conditions in our astrological chart, etc. So that comes in Vishnu Puranam 6.5.8. So if you look into Puranas, you will certainly get description of these dukkha, the effects of dukkha, the cause of dukkha, the process of dukkha, the purpose of dukkha. Therefore, we need to take the studies of Adhyatma Shastra. Srimad Bhagavata also has something to tell us here. Its definition is also interesting. Vishaya Bhoga Kamana Dukkha Kama Sukhapeksha. Dukkham Kama Sukhapeksha, etc. is the description here. So it describes that you are not getting the sensual pleasures. You are not getting Vishaya Bhoga. You are not getting the gratification. Not getting gratification itself is a sorrow. Now it's not a pain actually. When you are not getting sensory gratification, it should not be a pain, it is not a pain, but it becomes pain to human psyche, because human psyche is expecting some delights. So even when you don't get delight, that itself is a sorrow. Now there is no pain actually, pain sensation by not getting delights. But when you don't get that gratification, when you don't get fulfillment of your desire, then that is also dukkha, which is a wonderful dimension of dukkha given by Bhagavata, Srimad Bhagavata in 11.19.41. So this is in philosophical analysis also sometimes considered as positive dukkha and negative dukkha. So there is something called positive sorrow and negative sorrow. And negative sorrow is of the nature of that you don't get what you want, you don't get your objects for gratification, and therefore your mind becomes sad. This is the travesty of human mind and mind of even any animate being, because all animate beings have desires. So when the desires are unfulfilled, then we are not at ease and comfort, and we really suffer. So that is kind of negative dukkha in philosophical analysis. There is a positive dukkha and negative dukkha, positive sorrow and negative sorrow, positive pain and negative pain. As I said, philosophy has very deep inquiry into dukkham. We should not forget the Sankhya Shastra, Sankhya Darshanam gets launched on this very concept of dukkham. So if you look at the Sankhya Sutra 1.1, it is thus: Atha Trivida Dukkha Atyanta Nivrutti Atyanta Purushartha. Absolute eradication of dukkham is actually human endeavor and should be human endeavor. That's the major human endeavor, is to avoid any kind of pain, not only present pain but even future pain and even past pain, because the past pain also can be agonizing us. So this is how human mind is. We remember, if you recall during Smriti, discussion on Smriti, I said there is no actual dukkham, but by memory we recall the dukkham. Imagination also causes dukkha, where sometimes we imagine sorrow and then we are in sorrow. We recall sorrow and therefore we are in sorrow. We recall sorrow and then we revoke any delight that we are in actually. That is set aside. That you are in delight but you set aside. That's the travesty that human mind has to face. Or imaginary sorrow. There is no actual sorrow, but then we imagine that we have a sorrow and then we are sorrowed. So if you recall the discussion of Smriti Vritti, we had discussed that. So Sankhya Sutra says, Atha Trivida Dukkha Atyanta Nivrittihi Atyanta Purushartaha. Trivida Dukkha. So, mention comes to Trivida Dukkha, which we are considering now. The Sankhya Karika has also such an opening kind of verse. It is Dukkha Traya Abhigata Rupa. Dukkha Traya. So, see how much this Trivida Dukkha concept is so prominent in Indian philosophical system. Then Bhoja, in his Rajamartanda Vritti, while commenting on the same sutra, he says, Tatra Dukkha Chittasya Rajasa Parinamo Badhana Lakshanaha. So he introduces to another dimension of Dukkha. Dukkha is the augmentation, escalation, expansion of Rajoguna. So if you have to consider the three gunas, then Dukkha is outcome of Rajoguna. When the Rajoguna exuberance is there invariably you are creating sorrow, actual or potential. And this is based on a precept in Bhagavad Gita, where Bhagwan himself says, Rajasastu phalam dukkham. This oft quoted kind of verse in Bhagavad Gita. Rajasastu phalam dukkham. So we must beware of this Rajoguna coming into us, we getting associated with Rajoguna, because that is potential dukkham. Rajoguna itself is potential dukkham. So Bhoja makes it clear that this is Rajoguna because Chittavrittis are playing havoc. It is because of influence of Sattva Raja Tamo gunas getting alternated, something becoming prominent, etc. So he brings to our notice that Tatra Dukkha Chittasya Rajasa Parinamo Badhana Lakshanam. Badhana. It's a badha, it's a badhana. It torments us, vexes us. It is something that is going to devastate our desires, our aspirations. In that way, badhana. Our smooth life will be derailed from that track. If at all, if we have a very smooth life, it will be derailed by dukkham. So this also can be seen from another view of another philosopher, Prashastapada. Prashastapada was a commentator on Vaisheshika Sutras. And there he says, Dukkha is upaghata lakshanam. It hurts us. Dukkha always hurts us. And what hurts us is dukkha. And dukkha is that which hurts us. And whatever hurts us is dukkha. It is upaghata lakshana. Pida swarupa. It also agonizes us. It torments us. It vexes us. So that is pida swarupam. So upaghata lakshana pida swarupa. If it is of the nature of pida and it has the attribute of the nature of upaghata, that is to hurt. Hurting is its attribute, and agonizing and tormenting us is its swarupam, is its essential nature. So when such things are in close proximity also, we are sorrowed. Whether they really touch us or impact us, just they being around itself will be create. We have this badhana. We have this badha, and we have this the pida. We have the agony. So even just a poison in close vicinity of you, around you, it disturbs our mind, and then that disturbance is dukkhatmaka. So if you look at his words, the words are, or the wording is, उपघात लक्षणम दुखम विषादि अनभिप्रेत विषय सन्निध्ये सान्निध्ये सति अनिष्टोपलब्धि इंद्रिय सन्निकर्षात् अधर्मादि अपेक्षात् आत्ममनसो संयोगात् यद अमर्षघात दैवा आदि निमित्तम उत्पद्यते दुःखम. So he tries to give a very elaborate definition which is considering all factors of dukkha, all causes of dukkha, all effects of dukkha, all modes of dukkha. So he tries to put it in one statement, all these aspects in his dukkha prakaranam. This you can find in Prashastapada Bhashya on Vaisheshika Darshanam. Now, Nanayayikas, the Indian logicians, they have also considered dukkham, and they define in again familiar words with which we are now familiar with, badhana lakshanam dukkham. So wherever there is a badhana, that is the lakshanam, that is the attribute of that which is dukkham. So attributary factor of dukkha is that it is badhana lakshanam, and this comes in Nyaya Darshanam 1.1.21. So every philosophy has dealt with dukkham. So you look into any philosophy, you will get to know different dimensions, different perspectives of dukkha. So the dukkha is something that much can be said about it, and much needs to be explored about it. We need to look into the Dharma Shastra, Jnana Shastra, Vedanta Shastra, Yoga Shastra, which will tell us much about this dukkham. And then you will come to know that you really do not have understanding of dukkha at that depth. Although we all are experiencing dukkha in some form or the other, it's just a torment, and therefore we just want to get away from it. But in philosophy, they really get the dukkha into test tube and go on observing it, watching it. We commoners, we just want to kick it away. We want to just kick it. If it comes closer to us, we want to avoid it, escape it, and kick it, destroy it. But in philosophy, they say that it is eternal reality, and that's how the life is. The life is nothing but dukkham. So, if you are a common man, layman, worldly man, what is dukkha for you? I did not tell you. But if you have little wisdom, then your idea, notion, concept of dukkha will be different. If you are atheist, if you are very, very mundane and materialistic, what is dukkham is one thing. But we don't really understand dukkha in complete perspective. Therefore, we need to look into the philosophical systems which are really there, having very deep inquiry into dukkham. We just try to get away from dukkham, and therefore we really will never understand dukkham, although we are experiencing dukkha. Whereas most of our life is experiencing some kind of dukkha, some kind of worry, anxiety, stress, and all these are not what we want. We want to get rid of all those. So these are all dukkha. So we need to look into philosophy to really understand objectively what the sorrow is, what the dukkha is. Anyway, much can be said about dukkham, and we will be also considering the dukkha when we come to that topic in Yoga Sutras, where the dukkha has been dealt with in philosophical dimension of it. Here we are just looking at dukkha as an accompanying factor. Patanjali will tell us about parinama dukkha, tapa dukkha, samskara dukkha, gunavritti virodha rupa dukkha. So philosophical inquiry is going to come later. Therefore, I am not getting into it now. because we are looking at dukkha as in a limited perspective as an accompanying factor to vyadhi, sthana, samshaya, pramadadi antarayas. So it should be sufficient here to say about what dukkha is, because we are going to have very detailed analysis of what is really dukkha, actual, real, uh, and dukkha in the sense that we don't feel it is dukkha, but yet it is dukkha. This is how human psyche is, because we have this avidya, we have the ajnanam. We cannot really know what something is, because we are always with avidya. We are always, our mind is infested by avidya. So therefore this is not the place to really inquire, because the inquiry is going to come at later stage in sadhana pada of Yoga Sutra. So there will be going into deep inquiry. So sufficient should be deliberation on dukkha here, which comes as an accompanying factor to antarayas. So next time we will go to daurmanasya. So enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.